Howdy people, we have a project today and it is a tank heater for like an RV water tank type thing, but we're going to repurpose it for something different. So let's follow along, let's see how it works. Let's do it. Starting off with a piece of 1-inch foam, and this is just a small craft piece, but way over here there's a whole nother sheet that we have to work with. But what we have here is a Falcon tank heater, and it comes with an inline fuse pigtail to put in. And here is the tank heater. It's about 12 by 18. And if anyone's looking, here's your model number, 65 watts. But important over here is this is thermostatically controlled, and it's important that we don't put anything on here that'll mess that up. But this is kind of a foam front and then an adhesive peel back. And we're going to go ahead and do this off screen, but I'm going to go ahead and put this fuse in to the wires that come out of it, and we'll go ahead and do that now. Interesting here is, I don't know if you can tell, but got these wires coming from it. This is the fuse that it gives you. It's just a 10 amp fuse, but if you can see the gauges on that wire, you can see this is a lot skinnier wire than the rest of it is, which is interesting. But we also have, if I can find it, I just had this out here. Give me just a second. We have a small on and off toggle switch, and this switch is rated at 20 amps, and the factory fuse on this is 10 amps, so we are good. So we're going to go ahead and wire. This looks like a long enough lead for me to work with, so we are going to wire the fuse in, and we're going to wire the switch in. So I'll go ahead and get those wired in. I'll get that all set up. Okay, so there's a butt splice there. There's our fuse. This is going to our switch. That's the hot to the load. This is the hot from the power source. And then our negative is here. And we'll wire this into one of the connectors or something we're going to use on the power supply. So we'll come back to that. Next thing we have to do is we have to measure for our, we're going to build a box out of this that the heater is going to be in, and the solar generator, whatever you want to call the things, that's going to be in, and that will have your heating element in here. But this has to be cut to the size of that, and we'll have to make holes and access points for inputs and outputs and all those things. So we will get working on that next. This is the unit we're building this heated case for, and essentially what you have, there's 2 wireless charging stations on the top, which we don't use, so we're not worried about those. And then you have all your output and your control board. Everything is on the front, so we have to accommodate for all of these things plugged in on the front within our container. And around the side is the input, and right here is an exhaust fan. And then on the other side, it's very dark, but there should be another exhaust fan there. So if you're building one of these cases, it's important that you have to accommodate for the unit, for its inputs, outputs, and depending on your load, space over those vents for cooling down the internals. This unit here will be running full-time over winter, but it will be running a low load of DC only and charging by solar only. So we're going to accommodate those. We will leave some space for venting on the sides, but it's not as critical because this is not going to be a high load unit. So the fans and cooling and all that stuff shouldn't be needed very often at all. So we're going to take all our measurements from this, and the unit is about 16 wide, 12 deep, and this is 1-inch foam that we're using. So that was 16 by 12, and that roughly is the same size as the tank heater that we're going to use. And I'm not sure if I'm just going to mount this on the back or the side or the bottom. This one actually is 18 by 12. So it's actually just a little bit wider than that is. But we're going to leave room to accommodate for the venting on the sides and all our inputs and everything, or all our outputs on the front and the input on the sides. So we're going to start measuring and it's good to start off with a fresh blade with these. Gives you a good clean cut. After a couple cuts, it'll start getting jagged in the foam, and then it just makes a worse cut, which results in a worse final product. And there's the top and bottom. Now we're going to cut the sides, the back, and the front. And it's important when you're measuring this to account for the thickness of the foam in your overlaps, because that's an easy way to make a miscut if you're not accounting for that. So we'll go ahead and get those measured up and cut those next. Will be our sides, and we have to cut a top, the front. Now we already have the top, but we've got to cut the front and the back to fit in there. So this gives us an idea of the box, and then we need a 20 wide by 16 tall for the front and a 20 wide by 16 tall for the back. And once that's done, then we can start looking about where we need access holes for inputs, outputs, all that good fun stuff. If you rough tear this with the paper back, if you cut it really smooth and make these pieces nice and neat, it's really hard to separate the paper from the metal foil tape. So I'll usually come in here and deliberately try to tear it a little bit rough, and it makes it easier for me to get this peeled. So we'll get a couple of these started. This is for our charging port. Off the back of it, we're looking at about 5 inches centered from the back. It's going to be around here. And then 3.5 inches up. Puts us kind of right on top of that, right on top of this blue line. So then we have to look at the size of the connector and do a cutout here to make that work. This is the large end of the connector, but this is the other end that's a little smaller. We're going to work on fitting this smaller connector into that. So let's go ahead and we're going to put this thing together. And we've got this foil tape. We will put it together with the foil tape, and I'm just going to start getting a few of the sides and whatnot lightly assembled, and then I will go measure this guy and start preparing for inputs and output ports. That'll be next. Done this small cutout for the input, and that should work. And now let's go back and take a look at the front of this unit again. Now this unit is touchscreen, so I really need access to be able to push buttons to do different things here. And then we've got our power button, outputs, outputs, outputs all the way across. So we really need kind of have access to this whole front piece. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to measure that. And this is roughly 14 inches by 5, 45. And that's about 9 inches off the ground, 45 inches off the floor. Most of the way cut out. Set it press this out without tearing this up too much, because we still need this piece. But rough idea of the opening. And we're gonna go take a look at that yourself. And we're gonna use this tape, and we're gonna close all those. Gonna close this. We're gonna wrap this all in the full of tape. And we have our tape. I'm gonna peel the backing on this. And you gotta be careful with these longer pieces because they like to stick to themselves. So I'll get this almost to the end, and I'll leave that there, because if I pull that, it's going to curl. So I'll hold this. I'll get that set about where I want it. Once this touches, it likes to stay where it touches. Be careful with the placement. This is going to be right about here. And this won't be perfect. Again, it's a DIY project. But we'll fold this over. And we're going to do all 4 sides, so there will be a little overlap and trimming necessary here and there. Fold that to the back. Press this down. And 3 more sides. So that's part's done. This slides into here, and we are going to go ahead and tape this up and make a box out of it. And these edges, you see where the white foam is, we're going to put tape all down those. So the whole outside of this will all be the foil. And then we're not putting the lid on yet, because we have to drop, we got to drop the thing into here and then try to connect everything and all that good stuff. But actually, I'm going to leave this side, which is the left-hand side where my solar input comes in. I'm going to leave this side loose so that I can get my plug in, because that's at the bottom of the side. So I'll leave that loose, put the unit in, and then come back and attack that. And then I'll seal this side up once we get to that point. So tape, 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 tape everywhere. So here we are. We have a box. As I mentioned, I left this side open. This is the plug that goes into the unit. And see if you guys can see. I'm not sure if you guys can see that right down there, but maybe. This will go through this little hole. And that goes to solar panels. So we'll have to seal this up. This will get sealed up. I'll probably put a little piece of excess foam in there, and then tape over the outside and tape over the inside, just so there's not an air gap there. But this will allow us to set our toy in and see if we can plug it in. So I will leave this loose, and let's go grab a toy. And I think this is 70 or 80 pounds or something ridiculously heavy. But this sets here, and you guys cannot see that, so I'll see if I can bring you around. Pardon all the mess. Projects make messes. That's how life works. There's a little dot on here that tells me where to plug this in. This sets here. Pull that back. Yeah. And on this unit, there's a second input, but we're not using it. We're just using that one. So from here, this will get sealed up. That will contain the unit. The lid will go on top and get sealed here. And then I'll bring you guys back around. That is the front. We still have to address the front, get all this sealed up. And I'm just doing this to show you how this is working. This unit is too heavy. I cannot pick this up inside of this. I have to get this in its final resting spot and then put that unit back into it. Just because of the sheer weight, that's like 80 pounds or something like that. And it's too heavy for the styrofoam. It would just break it. So I will work on all of that and bring you back. For anyone wondering, this unit has 4 feet that go on this. And I've compared that to where the feet will sit on this heating pad. And it doesn't feel like it's going to interfere with anything within the heating pad. So I will actually test this with the unit on it. But you could always mount this to a board or some firm layer and then set on top of it. or mount it to, say, the back wall, and it'll just radiate heat off the back wall. But I think where the feet are on this unit, I think it'll be okay with this, so we're going to give that a try. I have moved this up to its home. Heat pads under there, input here, outputs here, and we're going to go ahead and seal the rest of this up and work on the top. Okay, for now we're only hinged at the top. We'll clean all of this up, but we've got, where did it go? There's our heater, and this can go into just a regular cigarette plug. That takes care of that. We have another plug that will go down into here, and that just sets in, and then this will be fused and go to other leads that we need. Access to USB, blah blah blah, AC stuff, AC, I can get my hands on it. Okay, that's three-way. We're just going to set this down into here and find a spot out of the way for it. Lift one of these up, plug this in here, and this is test, reset, fuse, blah blah blah. But we are not using AC on this, we are only using DC. So for now that is just going to live down there, and if it's needed that can be popped out through here. But this is all we're doing for now as far as powering things, but we have to get this sealed because obviously this thing won't save any heat with this thing wide open, so we'll work on that next. This is the piece that came out of the front, but since we've wrapped this foil and whatnot in here, this is now just a little bit too big. So we're going to cut this down and make it a little bit smaller, and then we'll also wrap the edges of this just like we did that. So that is our next step. So we've cut this down. Now we're wrapping it in tape. See if we can get this guy to come off. Doing this one-handed, I really should set up the tripod. I really should. But this is just folding over all the way around. No sense in videoing too much of that. It's self-explanatory. There we go. So now this is a little smaller than the original size. We're going to attach it right here at the top. Here we go. Full tape's added to it. Set this in the hole that we want, and then drop it on the ground. That's always a good thing. Set this on the hole we want, and just tap it. And just tap that. And see, that's close enough. Then we'll put this tape up. This tape is functioning as a hinge. This here can flip up, look inside, set that back down, and that's looking at it from the inside. The next step that I've done is I've put this tape on the bottom, fold this up, sticky side down, and then I have my second piece of foam that I've made, and let's see if we can close that all the way. And this is going to stick right here, and that piece of tape is going to act as a hinge, but I'm going to set you guys down, and I'm going to do this with two hands just so it's a little straighter. So there we go. This will fold up and secure like this here, and then when I need to get to it, fold this one down, lift this one up. Now we can access everything inside, and what I'm going to do is find a way to secure this so this stays up. Probably a piece of Velcro, something like that. So I'll go look for that, and then I'll be right back. I put Velcro right there on those little edges. So we'll close this up, press that in, and we'll let this sit for a little while so that adhesive in there can work. I think we may, this air gap here, we may put a piece in the middle. We'll see how it works out. But this is double, so there's still the piece on the inside and that. So this should help a lot with any kind of air transfer. The camera ran out of memory on the last segment, but so I'm not sure if it caught this or not, but I've been kind of moved on to doing some other things and getting other things set up. But this, let's stick that back in here for a second. This folds down and this velcros up, and that's a sealed box. So this setup here, I haven't run the wires yet, but this is a 25 amp plug, and I'm putting a 20 amp fuse in it, so it should never trip this. And this may seem rudimentary, but these are the wires that are going into it. And let me see how we're going to do this. We're going to take this, those lead back behind here. So we're just going to take those wires somewhere down here near the bottom. And we're just poking them right through. Curl them around to the front, and then we'll connect. Need a little more. Those are going to get tangled. So let me reach down in here. Sorry about the camera. I know it's not sure exactly what it wants to focus on with everything happening in this frame. This is going to pull through. Come down. There we go. Okay. And now we've got these wires up front. They are a little tangled, but I'll detangle that. But I mean, that's about as clean as a seal you're going to get right there, is to just put the tips of these wires through, and that's it. Wires are in. Everything's good with that. Set this lid down. And this lid, I'm going to tape shut. You could seal it any way you want. You could put some Velcro on it. You could put some sort of weather stripping seal in between there and squish it down, keep air out. But I'm going to tape this down. Once this is set up and run, and all these wires are set the way I want them, this system will not move unless something breaks. If something breaks, I'll cut the tape open and redo that once whatever's sorted out. But that's where we're at. Okay, there you have it. I think that covers anything major with this insulated heated box that I've made for my Sogen solar generator, power station, whatever you want to call them nowadays. And if you have any questions, hit me up below in the comments, suggestions, any of those good fun things. Otherwise, see you down the road. Take care, guys.